Thank you for staying with us. It's been about 3 weeks since the APC presidential candidate unveiled his manifesto. And since then, the buzz on the list of things he hopes to achieve has become a discussion among many. In his 80-page manifesto tagged Renewed Hope 2023 Action Plan for a Better Nigeria, security tops the list of the many issues he says he will address immediately if elected the next president of Nigeria. Among the other issues are creating better economic policies, better education system, quality health resource, agricultural reforms, and curbing the unemployment issue in the country. Joining us to discuss this from our Abuja studio is writer and political analyst Onyeka Ibe. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
I'm really excited to be here.
All right. Now, let's begin with what we see, the reports we see on the papers this morning. If you look through the papers this morning, President Buhari is said to be or to have boasted about the person of Ashiwaju Bola Tinubu when he met with King Charles. And even his wife, Aisha Buhari, had this to say about the person of Ashiwaju Bola Tinubu, that Nigerians are safe with him on the saddle. From what you know of him, talk to Nigerians now, because this is not just about we having this conversation. There are those who are watching. What you believe Aisha Buhari and the president have seen in the person of Ashiwaju, that he is being marketed, that APC is lucky to have him, and that Nigerians are safe to have him on the saddle.
I totally agree with their opinions. Personally, I've been following Ashiwaju and his policies and public pronouncements for many years. Only recently, I opened my private library and I brought out the project work for my degree certificate in 1997. And I looked for the page where I researched on Ashiwaju Bola Tinubu. He wasn't so well known then. He was an elected senator of the Federal Republic before the military regime of Abacha annulled the June 12th election, before IBB annulled the June 12th elections, and so on. You know, so I've always followed Ashiwaju. And what I've noticed about him is that he is passionate about Nigeria, and is a man of action. So like Buhari said, I am excited and I'm happy that he's the candidate of APC because he gives a lot of promise to the country. And going forward, when we discuss his manifesto, I'll try to link his past with his present, what he has done in the past, what he has said in the past, what he has preached in the past, with what he promises Nigeria right now, going towards the election of February next year.
Was asked a question sometime last week that in his manifesto, what will be his most prized agenda? And he said it was going to be power. And I feel that everything revolves around power. Can you speak on this and the value of that in his manifesto?
Okay, before I go forward, I'd like to explain to people who may not know the meaning of manifesto. For a political party seeking power, for a candidate seeking office, a manifesto is a declaration of intent. What do you want to do when you get into office? How do you want to do it? When do you want to do it? And I've read through Ashiwaju's manifesto, and concerning power, I've seen that he understood the problem that we have. But he also recognizes that the current government and other past governments have made some efforts in investing in power. And he now said that going forward, coming into power, by the time he comes into power, some of the projects going on would have come on stream. And then he's going to take them further invest more in this infrastructure, in the infrastructure necessary for power generation. But he also talked about diversifying the generation of power. First of all, he said there's going to be a review of the legal process, the constitutional process for power sharing and power generation in the country. He's going to give the state government more leeway to invest in power, and he's going to give private individuals more opportunity to invest in power so that it will not be just the central government, the federal government investing in power, and when they fail, the whole country fails. That really interests me. That really excites me, because power generation and distribution in the country, in any country at all, requires a lot of investment. And we've left it for so long without investment. And when we started investment, it was left for only the federal government alone. I think bringing other players from the private sector, from the state government, even the local government, like Ashiwaju Manifesto anticipates, would help to ease this power. And Ashiwaju did not stop there. He went further to quote figures. He said that he expects us within 2 years to be able to utilize the power that we generate currently, because we generate up to, we're installed to generate up to 12,000 megawatts of electricity. But currently, because of some certain issues, we're only able to generate 8,000 megawatts. And even those 8,000 megawatts that we generate, we don't distribute. We only distribute about 4,500 megawatts of electricity. So he said, first of all, we have to, going forward, the immediate thing to do is to be able to distribute the 8,000 megawatts that we generate already. And then our installed capacity, use all of it, use all the 12,000 megawatts. And then we can now have future investments to move this figure up to 15,000, up to 20,000 megawatts. And by the time we do that, by the time we do half of this, I think less and less people will be complaining about power interruptions in the country. So I think it's a great idea.
All right, Onyeka, the staying on this issue of power, the issue there is power is still an item on the exclusive legislative list. And as it is, it hasn't been unbundled yet. And if all of these promises that are being put in place, Nigerians are quite excited about them looking forward. But when it comes to the implementation, do you see the likelihood of constitutional bottlenecks standing in the way as an obstacle to achieving the knockdowns of some of these issues around power implementation?
I don't think so. Nobody likes to stay in darkness. Nobody likes their home without power. Nobody likes their businesses without power. So I think everybody is going to key in and stay on board to change, to do to carry out the required constitutional or legal reviews that we need to ease business for everybody regarding power generation and distribution. So I don't foresee any obstacle regarding the amendments that we need to do to our laws to bring about power for everybody.
Still speaking on power, he talked about the total removal of estimated billing. That has been an issue over time that this government has been looking to address. And I'm wondering how you see him addressing that if he comes on board.
Personally, I think the issue of billing has been overflowed. We need to have power before we need to start talking about how it is billed. We don't have the power. So the least of our problem, in my opinion, is billing system. So when we get power and the dealers are able to supply consumers the power they need for their homes, their offices, their businesses, I think people will be more inclined to pay electricity, whether it's estimated billing or metered billing. But there are already systems in place. There are companies, local producers who are going into local production of meters. So, and I think that knowing Ashiwaju, the man of action that he is, he can use his team to accelerate the production of these meters. He can use legal framework to compel electricity dealers to install meters for every user of electricity if they demand it, But some people who may not even need it, because sometimes I was currently checking my power consumption, and I'm consuming something like 1,500 naira daily. And I was wishing that I was an estimated billing, because the kind of house that I live in, estimated billing was something around 18 to 20,000 naira a month. Meanwhile, I'm spending more than 40,000 naira already on my metered billing. But I'm happy to have it. I'm happy to have electricity. And so personally, like I said before, I don't think that billing matter is the big issue. The big issue is having homes and offices and businesses connected to the grid and having electricity when they need it. So I think once they have this, people are going to be less concerned about how their bills come. That's my opinion on that.
What does the manifesto do to bring confidence to Nigerians about the economy generally? I mean, what sense do you get from it that, we are going to get out of the doldrums?
Okay, I see a lot of optimism, a lot of courage in the preparation of the economic blueprint. Ashiwaju gave some benchmarks. He did not hold back. He said he wants to create jobs for people. He wants to industrialize Nigeria. He wants to move us from a mainly importing country to an export-based economy. To be an export-based economy, you need to create jobs. You need to industrialize. When people are employed, they are happier. They pay more taxes. Government have more to invest in infrastructure and social programs. So, and I think he went further to say that the exchange rate, he is confident that he can bring down the value of the dollar compared to the naira. That is a very, very brave thing to say. And he said he is confident that he can grow the economy from the present about $488 billion GDP to something like nearly 800 billion US dollars GDP in 4 years. That is a very confident promise to make. And he just didn't make the promise. He set out a roadmap to achieving it. Part of this roadmap is to diversify the economy from the mono product of oil that we depend on for our budgeting. He wants to move it to other products so that we no longer have to base our budget on the value and the quantity, value and volume of oil that we sell. Rather, we will check our needs and base our budget on our needs. Then work to get the money outside of oil that we need to implement our budget. And I feel that if we do anything close to this, within 2 years, Nigeria will be pouring like a new engine.
All right. The COP27 on the environment is going on right now in Egypt. And because I want to stay on the economy that you talked about, a lot of people are talking about the need. In fact, Nigerians have the need for more industries to be built. And those that were around in the 70s and 80s where the Naira was really strong, a lot of people have that at the back of their minds, reviving ailing industries and so on. Yet we have a situation where the new wave of climate change is pointing to the fact that we need to cut down on industrialization or any kind of activity, for that matter, that releases greenhouse gas and so on. How do we reconcile this in trying to industrialize and create employment and so on in the manifesto?
Okay, personally, I feel that the relationship with a country, with the rest of the world, would have to be based on the national interest of that nation. When America interacts with Saudi Arabia, they're always thinking about their national interest. When Saudi Arabia makes a promise, it's thinking about its national interest. We are a carbon oil producing nation. 80% or more of our foreign exchange earning comes from oil, fossil fuel. So we cannot be at the forefront of any program to move away from oil in the short term. In the long run, we have to face that reality. But right now, Nigeria needs to focus, develop its oil fields, earn as much dollars as we can need, and invest in other areas like Saudi Arabia, like Qatar, the Gulf states, and the other Middle East states who are oil-producing countries are currently doing. We need to earn as much as we can, as quickly as possible. And then we can now begin to gradually diversify our economy from the oil, the carbon, and so on. So right now, we have to think of ourselves. And if any country, anybody wants us to move quickly away from oil, they may have to fund our budget for us. They may have to bring programs that will help us deal with the shortfall in revenue such a policy will cost to the country. So, but it's a climate change. Climate change is real. The effects are here upon us every day. The floodings, the heat, and so on and so forth. So we need to put that into consideration when we talk about our policies, when we make our policies. So I feel that Ashiwaju has even mentioned it the other time that we need to, anybody who needs us to move away from oil will have to consider our condition and help us deal with an economy without oil. So as important, as imperative as climate change is, as imperative as it is to move away from oil, we have to consider our own interests first. We cannot do that right now without collapsing our country. So the good thing to do will be to go in gradually and not lead that change.
All right, still talking about the impact of climate change, there have been concerns that there might be food shortage in the coming days with regards to how the floods have ravaged farms and drowned some farmlands. And then there's also the aspect of insecurity where some persons cannot, go to the farms to farm as they should. Now, when you look at the manifesto, his plans on agriculture, does it in any way insulate us from any form of food crisis or food shortage or food security? Does it address that in any way?
Yes, it does. Nigeria has a big land mass suitable for agriculture. And the manifesto recognizes that. And they've promised to work with farmers to give them the necessary tools that they need to increase their yields. Specifically, he talked about irrigation, and the flooding season maybe takes about 5 months or 4 months from us, but the rest of the year, our farmers can farm. The plains, the farmlands are ready. In fact, the problem becomes dry land. It's no longer flooding. And that's when this program will come in so that farmers can farm all year round through irrigation. They don't have to depend on rains alone. He now said he intends to help them with financing. He intends to help them with training, outreach programs, so that they can move from subsistence, primitive farming to mechanized modern farming. They can form cooperatives whereby the farmer might not be able to buy the equipment they need for mechanized farming. They can form cooperatives, and the government will help them with funds, will help them with trainings, and help them with organization to be able to band together and take advantage of modern technology, take advantage of science to improve crop yield. So I think that the flooding has wreaked havoc across the country, even across the world. A country like Pakistan has 33 million people underwater. 33 million people are suffering the effects of the massive flood in Pakistan. In Nigeria, population suffering the effects of flooding probably up to 10 or 20 million. Many states in Nigeria, Delta, Bayelsa, I heard recently, Kogi State, we all know about. And we're suffering the effects of climate change because of this. But we cannot just lock ourselves down and cry. What we need to do is to where we can, to help people who are affected by flooding to ameliorate the suffering, and then wait for the flood to recede and then see how we can salvage what we can, and going forward, helping farmers when the season is dry to continue their farming if they cannot do it when their farms are flooded. So I think Tinubu Manifesto has taken a good decision on farming.
Now let's look at Delta politics. Why is it shaping up between PDP, APC, and Labour Party? Can you give us a fair idea of how things stand now with the candidates in the presidential and also governorship slugfests?
Okay, I speak to many Deltans where I'm from regularly, people who are not active members of PDP, who are the majority of people in Delta State. And many people are unhappy with the choice of candidates. It's not about political party. Many people are unhappy about, even when many of them used to support PDP, many of them are worried, anxious about the choice of candidate for PDP going into the governorship election. Right now, like we said, revenues from oil is declining, and the world is moving towards a knowledge-based economy, knowledge-based leadership. While the rest of the world is moving north, Delta State has decided to move south. They are depending on political patronage, on loyalty to a particular person to appoint, to anoint a candidate to stand for the election. Because of this, many Deltans are looking for alternative to PDP. And the APC candidate presents a very credible and strong alternative to what is going on in Delta State PDP. So going into the election, there are going to be realignments of forces. Those guys who lost out in the PDP primaries and PDP court cases, they've recently deliberated on it. The whole Delta State is waiting for them to announce where they think they might pitch their tent going into that election. And all these factors will play a very big role towards what happens in that election next year. So I think Delta State in a flux, Delta State political governorship election predictions is in a flux right now. People are waiting. People are anxiously waiting to see how forces align before they go out and pitch their tent. So, but I expect changes. I expect a good fight in Delta State. It's no longer going to be before where results are known before elections are held. First of all, because the probability of rigging has been drastically reduced. So people have to go to the field, sell their programs, sell their candidates. Who do we want to be? Who does Delta State, who does he want to be? You know, so the people of Delta State are thinking seriously about who's going to be their next governor. I've asked a lot of them. Many of them are anxious. And I feel that many of them are ready to make a change. They are very ready to move away from the head attitude where they follow one person, even if it's leading them to hell, even if it's leading them to sink in the ocean. Many of them are out there, you know. Regarding the Labour Party candidate in Delta State, to be frank, I hardly remember his name. I don't know if he has done his work well, but if he's going to put up a stiff fight, he's going to put up a competitive race, he has his work cut out for him, because Omagige is well known in Delta State. APC is a brand in the country, and PDP is also well entrenched in Delta State. But for Labour Party's governorship candidate, he has enough time to make himself, to sell himself. So we look forward to hearing what he has for us. But other positions in Delta State, like Senate positions, House of Assembly positions, Labour Party might localize the campaign and give PDP and APC a fight for their money. So it's going to be interesting going forward.
All right, Onyeka, let's come back to the manifesto proper, and let's talk about issues of security. Everyone knows and understands that before there is any development anywhere, there has to be security. And this is a very central or is a crux on issues, general and development and democracy. Now, in the manifesto, there is a talk about the issue of redefining military doctrine and practice. Can you break that down for Nigerians to understand what that means and what would it change and how would it be different?
Okay. In the security aspect
All right.
of the manifesto,
Let me put
promises.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Onyeka, go ahead.
In the security aspect of the manifesto, Ashiwaju promises to redesign our security architecture. He said he's going to develop a team, anti-terror team, well-armed, specially trained to be proactive. We no longer have to wait for terrorists to strike terrorists or bandits or kidnappers to strike before we go after them. We will now put drones in the air, helicopters in the air, surveillance planes in the air, and track them and strike them before they strike us. Because it looks like in the past we've been reactionary, but now he promises to be proactive, and I think that's a very good promise to make regarding the security situation in the country. He also, most importantly, because you've not asked me that question, and I'm eager to talk about it, he promises a constitutional review of the balance of the system, the balance of Nigeria's system. And this will affect who is in charge of security, at what levels. For instance, part of the reason security has deteriorated to the state it is in Nigeria currently. You have to answer that
in a few seconds because we're running out of time.
Okay, so generally speaking, the immediate problem is to overpower and eliminate the kidnappers and bandits and terrorists. Tinubu has promised that he's going to set up a team that will do this immediately. They're going to be a proactive team, armed with modern weapons, with modern training, and I feel it's a good thing for Nigeria to hear.
All right, and that's a fine place to leave the conversation this morning. Onyeka Ibe, writer and political analyst in our Abuja studio, thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me.